So first off, I just want to welcome you all here to Cedar Creek Institute. We're so glad to have you here on a Wednesday evening celebrating the Feast of Home. This is our second in a two-part series and the first initiative here for the Feast of Home, Berry County. So thank you so much for coming. Those of you who were here to enjoy the meal, are your bellies full? And those of you who are just arriving now, there's cookies and coffee in the Commons area. So this is just an exciting moment here at the Institute. A year ago, my good friend Julie, there in the back, excited, thank you Julie from Michigan Smith. After we knew that this was going to be my new job, my new career coming back after 25 years being away from home, starting in January, she came over to the house and gave me a gift. And I opened up that gift, and it was a book called The Feast Nearby. And that book was a story of a woman who came to Berry County back to her rural roots and went across the county foraging and eating locally from farms and the fields and forests. And that began a discussion about, Virginia, what if we did something along these lines when you get to Pierce? That was exactly 1 year ago today. Wow. And so interesting, you wake up in the morning, Google shows you that photo. I had no idea, but here we are. And so that conversation grew. Next thing I knew, Catherine Getty from B.Healthy, Berry County, jumped in to spark some inspiration. I started talking to Elisa Otto, and soon enough, it was like dominoes of all these people that are so curious and interested in eating and feeding people locally here in the county. So that's really the beginning and instigation that brought us all together tonight. And so today before you, we've brought together this amazing group, amazing resource from Berry County. And we're here to talk about this basic essential question. How do we create a local food community that supports farmers and eaters alike? We know that this is important to the environment, right? Local food systems reduce the amount of food miles. It helps preserve agricultural lands. It helps protect biodiversity, as well as our watersheds, our soils, all these things. And so this wonderful panel tonight is going to talk about how we might be able to get to this. And so to start things off, I'm going to have them introduce themselves here tonight. So go ahead, Joshua Schultz.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Do I need the mic? No? Okay, I'll use the mic. It's hard to tell. Sometimes my voice can be a little booming, so let me know. So I'm Joshua Schultz. I was born and raised here in Berry County, grew up down by Delton. And my interest in food systems started at a very young age. And throughout my life, I've been working at establishing various forms of agriculture and farms and teaching agricultural education. My most recent background is with permaculture. Is anyone familiar with permaculture in the room? No. A handful. Nice. So permaculture is a growing philosophy. It's like regenerative agriculture, but it looks at cultures around the world and how can we emulate what they've done to be permanent in their locations where we're at. How do we form a permanent culture or permanent agriculture in Michigan? So starting this year, I took the big leap and I'm starting my own small farm. Doing in-ground growing this year down at my home down by Delton. With the intent of, we're also in the process of building a aquaponics greenhouse for year-round greens production. So it's a 32 by 40 foot greenhouse buried into a hillside. It's going to be heated through another process that we're working on to create biochar using trees that we're planting on our family farm. So I'm looking at ways of how can I develop a system of agriculture that is self-supporting, that ties into our local economy, our local microclimates that we have here in Southwest Michigan, and how can we generate more of that moving forward. So I'm really excited about this panel discussion and what we've been talking about in general. Thank you.
All right.
What do you grow?
This year I've been growing a bunch of small market garden items. So for example, at the last Feast of Home Dinner, the salad greens were from my farm. Tonight, the poblano peppers that were in the potatoes came from my farm. The primary thing, you can see, if you go back to my slide here, the picture on the left there, the main thing I did this year was put up a large trellis, so going with vertical growing. So that is a combined pole beans, tomatoes, cucumber, and squash trellis. So they all grow together and they all reinforce each other through growing. The beans provide the nitrogen, the squash provide shade, and they can climb up the structure. So just looking at different ways of doing it. It's somewhat of a takeoff of the traditional Three Sisters combination.
Hi, I'm Jessica Endres, Food Service Director for Thornapple-Kellogg Schools. I am in my 17th year as a director, and I believe my 12th, coming up on my 12th at TK. I started off at Coopersville Schools. For a few years I ran Delton and Thornapple together. And then Thornapple took me on full-time, so now I am just there. My journey into food systems began as a kid, similar to Joshua too. I grew up on a farm, a large agricultural farm in mid-Michigan. And then I've been here, came to West Michigan for art school, which is why I am still now in food service. Spent a lot of time in restaurants, spent a lot of time in my kitchens at school. My husband and I actually have our own small agricultural farm where we just have a roadside stand in the summertime. With TK, just in this last year, we started a large-scale hydroponics program, which has been interesting. We've learned a lot. It has been challenging and extremely rewarding. I was looking back at numbers earlier this week, and for the month of October, we served 19,500 breakfasts in our classroom, in our cafeterias, and 43,000 lunches in 1 month. So almost 63,000 meals. There is no other industry where we can touch students like that, where we can touch kids, where we can teach nutrition, where we can make sure that we're filling their bellies so they can fill their minds. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Allison Hinton. I came into food in a different way, just from growing up loving to cook. My favorite thing to watch was not cartoons, it was cooking shows. And that was before you could record stuff, and I would furiously write things down and then make my mom go buy all the stuff for me. And then I got into large-scale food service when I worked for the YMCA, and we had summer camp program, and I was tired of horrible food. Because the one thing you do at summer camp the most is eat. You have 3 meals a day and usually a few snacks. And so it's the one program that I was like, we need to change this. So I took over food service, taught myself how to cook for 200 people, and mostly scratch cooking. And we did that. I did that for several years until I moved to Michigan. And then I started working for the Berry County YMCA. And really my journey in food service there took off during the pandemic. We already had put into place the B.Bus mobile library, so that was my project. And then I was working on a program called Y on the Fly that would be feeding and fitness and food, or food and fitness and fun. And then the pandemic hit, and I went and met with Hastings School District the day they were going to close school down, going, how are we going to feed people? And I said, well, I already have a plan, I already have a model, let's put it into place. So the district was feeding and the Y was feeding, and so we went from feeding 0 people to 4,000 meals a week the next week. And we did that for 13 weeks straight in the very first part of the pandemic. We had a huge team of volunteers. Catherine was one of them, and she was over there counting out pepperonis and cheese sticks, and so that they could make a flatbed pepperoni pizza when they got their meal packet. So you can see some pictures there of the B-Bus and Y on the Fly, and those are all still going today. The Y has kept them going, they're still feeding, and it's really hitting those pockets of communities where kids can't get anywhere. So you think of Baltimore Terrace on your way out to Dowling, those kids can't walk to anything, they're just trapped. And so we would go out and play with them, and we still do that. And then also during the pandemic, we partnered with Blue Zones and the Junior Ranger program owners, Matt and Jenny Haywood. And so Allison Wiswell and myself and Matt organized to bring in the big food boxes through, can't read the name. Farm to Family, thank you. I'm like, it's right there. And we weren't sure what to expect because they were bringing in a semi-truck of food, and we had no idea if we were going to get rid of all this food. And we needed so much more, they started bringing in 2 semis. And so in the summer months, we did it for about 5 weeks, and then that winter, which you can see the picture, we did it during the winter for 5 different weeks, and it was like 13 degrees one day, and snowing and sleeting, and we were all out there, and it was 2 semi-trucks full of trailers of food that we were able to distribute. And we had people take stuff out of the county, out into the county as well. So it was about 150,000 pounds of food were distributed through that program. And then, yeah, so now I have become, if you have not heard of Mill Street Market, it's a new program that's been in the works since about 2019, and now it's coming to fruition. So all the hard work through the community, through Blue Zones, through B.Healthy, and now the Community Foundation. So Mill Street Market is slated to open next fall, and it's going to be a food hub, so a farm stop market and a cafe. And a farm stop is like if you take a farmer's market and a grocery store, you put them together, and you source all this local food, produce, made products, and they're sold just like at a grocery store, but the farmer gets 70 cents on the dollar back, instead of about 15 cents on the dollar back that they would get otherwise. And they don't have to stand there. So it's almost like a farmer's market, but they don't have to be present. We do all that work for them. It's also going to have an incubator kitchen, which is where you can come in as a food entrepreneur and cook and create and practice if you don't want to buy all the stuff. So you can rent time, space, and equipment and make things in a licensed kitchen. And then it was going to have an event center, but we don't need another one in Hastings as of now, so we are going to open a child care center for birth to school age for 60 kids. So it's essentially 3 businesses in one, so that's where we are right now.
Where is this going to be?
Oh, sorry, yep. So it's on the Royal Coach property in Hastings. So down, you can't really see it, but Copper Rock Construction is putting in a 135-unit apartment complex right off of Mill Street, and we'll be a part of that project.
So it's just before you get to the new development, right?
It's
like
within the development itself.
Okay.
And so if you're standing downtown, like at the plaza, the amphitheater, there's a walking footbridge that goes across the river. We're just across that footpath.
And you're going to be to the left.
So you'll go across and to the right, actually.
To the right.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I thought that's where they were building the housing development.
yeah. So I can show you afterwards.
I'm curious.
And now Nick Otto.
So yeah, this Virginia had the task of finding a turkey producer to come the 19th of November. The analogy he kept coming up with was, it's like asking Santa on Christmas Eve to come and give a talk. So we had to be
Very
creative.
persuasive.
Right. So if we were to stick with that analogy, Santa would be Nathan here, my brother in the gray sweat or the gray vest here, and his little elf here on the opposite side. That is myself. I am his brother, Nick Otto. So I'm speaking on behalf of Otto's Turkey Farm. We are a sesquicentennial farm here in Michigan, which means we're over 150 years in one spot. Actually, I think we're getting close to the 175. There's a very long Latin term that you get for 175. I couldn't remember what that was. But the very cool part about this is that our story is so deep, coming with that 150 and that 175 timeline, is that my ancestor, Charles McQueen, came across with a friend, John Robertson. And from there they came together, they settled, and they built a cabin. I think it was on the McQueen property, which is now the Otto farm. They both spent that winter in that cabin, only to next year go to the Robertson property across the road, less than a mile, and build a cabin there, so then they each, the next winter, had their own cabin. So sitting side by side here in Berry County, we have two over 150-year farms still operating in their own capacity. So yeah, as you do know, that we've chosen to find our niche market in turkey production, into the poultry production. And Michigan's got a great history with poultry. You look at Zealand having all the hatcheries, and then the surrounding areas having the poultry farms. So yeah, we are representing the turkey side of it. There is my uncle who's the chicken. They're their own operation as well. But yeah, tonight, yeah, we had the turkey on plate, and now we get to expand a little bit more of that here with this panel and knowing a little bit about the farm.
Where did they immigrate from?
Say it again.
Robinson, McQueen, where did they immigrate from?
Scotland.
Scotland,
So
okay.
yes, Robertsons and McQueens were both very big
Yes,
Scottish. I used to know the town, but actually my parents visited 2 years ago, and they were in the town where our with the Robertsons. It was a very neat trip that they all went on. Very cool. So yeah, from Scotland. Yeah, over here.
We're very lucky to have Otto's turkey here week before Thanksgiving. So to kick things off, we're going to start with a vision and dream in mind. And so the panelists, we've gotten together to have this discussion before, and we've had just an amazing conversation. And from that, ideas were shared. And so we're going to start with a vision 25 years into the future. Nick, how do I say it? Sequicentennial? Is that how you say it?
Sequicentennial.
Sequicentennial. Being a sesquicentennial family farm. I'd like to hear from you first. I'd like to hear what you see as a vibrant, resilient food system and community 25 years in the future.
This question hit me harder than what I thought it was going to do, because it sent me on looking at the future, but then all of a sudden I get a vision 5 years ago of what it was like in the past. 5 years ago, as Allison was mentioning, we went through the pandemic. Not the pandemic where we had to figure out if we were going to get the shot, not get the shot, which shot we were going to get, but that early form of pandemic where we didn't know what was coming. That this was a dangerous thing, that we were circling the wagons. We were staying at home. And we need to find a way to stock up and be able to sustain ourselves. From that reaction across our country, we saw grocery stores, their ready-made foods went like that. Anything that was in the freezer section that could be just slid into the oven, quickly it was gone. We then saw when that happened, that was gone, it went over to produce. Produce, like seemingly just evaporating off the shelves. And the meat counter was the same way. Everything was gone. America had to learn to cook again. There was no way to go to a restaurant. There was no way to get something brought in. We were going to have to survive. It brought out maybe some not very good feelings out of people. Maybe our reactions were a little bit in a panic. And being at the farm, we saw that from the public. We saw that from customers. We saw that from people who needed food. And witnessing just that small window of how things began to happen, we would have people come from close, regular customers that would say, hey, can I still get my regular order? Because we were in charge of the beginning and end of the process. We had our hands in the raising of the birds, the processing of the birds, and the selling of the birds. We were able to provide that to our customers. We would have new customers that would come in who would saw empty shelf after empty shelf being turned away from butcher shop to butcher shop to line up at our door and to say, what do you got? And I'll take it all. It made us have a conversation to say, hey, listen, we're going to be here next week. We're going to be able to process again. We can get you product. Let's start here, and we'll see you next week. This response was amazing, the fact that we were able to step up as a local producer and continue to keep on producing in such a trying time. Was it a little bit hard for, facing people with a little bit of panic and kind of walking them off the edge? Yes, it was tough. And with that demand, I watched my brother and his staff put on hours that would seemingly just blow our minds. To go from once a week we would have to process to where they were processing twice a week, only to see that product fly off the shelf the next day and to now contemplate, do we do a third just to get by? But I looked at that moment and I thought about, this could be that future look. Maybe in a little more controlled path, but here we find a local producer who's stepping up to the plate to be there for their community. And I say this because I've got that experience of that in that period of time. But I've got to know that there was a lot of other producers that I think were doing that exact same thing. They saw the demand, they saw what was needed, and they were then able to produce that. They didn't have to outfit from somebody else. They didn't have to wait for a shipment of something to come in, but it was handled at the local level. And from there, that's where I saw that gleaming, beautiful vision for 25 years down the road, or what the future of Berry County looks like. It's us being able to sustain ourselves and to have extra to be able to share with. That we are going to be able to have an amazing food economy here in our county that can be shared with the masses.
So thanks, that was a great, and I think food security is where I approach this vision as well. In my past, I've worked outside of the U.S. in the Bahamas, and on the island I was on, they had a very similar issue with food security. In fact, it kind of exacerbates everything when you're on a small island in the middle of the ocean, because everything had to be imported. The food that was on the island, almost none of it was grown locally. Something like 98% was the number we used to throw around, was imported. And so part of what I think of when I think of Michigan and Berry County, and the reason I moved back here is because of the unique opportunities that we have because of our location primarily. We have an abundance of microclimates. We grow lots of things. I've always heard that Michigan was the number 2 state for variety of agricultural products that are produced, only behind California, and California is only number 1 because they pumped rivers into the desert. We have natural abundance and variety here that is unmatched anywhere else in the country. Berry County in particular also has unique opportunities here because we don't have huge expanses of flat farmland. Our fields are smaller, they're more broken up. We have rivers and streams and forests. Our ecosystems are more intact here in Berry County and able to support regenerative agriculture a little bit better. And so when I was in the Bahamas and they were working on food security, and that's what I was down there working on as well, one of the things that the government was doing there to try to support small producers and help with their food import problems, they would have things like packing houses. So when I think of successful agriculture, I automatically think corn and soy growers, arguably the most successful in the world. Part of the reason why those 2 industries are really successful in the U.S. is because they know that they can take all of their product down to the grain elevator and sell it. They're not worried about where are we going to sell our product at the end of the growing season. They have a ready outlet to go. So I think we need something similar to that for our food here in Berry County. If we had something like a packing house model where we could get small growers, could all take their product, it all get graded and mixed together and be able to be sold to larger institutions. Like when we're talking about filling 11,000 breakfasts and 43,000 lunches, and that's just one school in the county, like the scale of what we need to achieve is much, much bigger than anything that we're thinking or talking about. So 25 years down the line, I see some sort of program like a packing house that would be able to do that. And take advantage of our unique location and our unique ability to market. We're also in the middle of 4 very large city centers: Grand Rapids, Lansing, Battle Creek, and Kalamazoo. So I think Berry County has a lot of opportunity to use what we naturally have here to start addressing food security issues even around Southwest Michigan, not just in Berry County. So that's what I think of when I think 25 in the future, is more of a systems approach. How do we take what we have and move it forward in a logical way?
So I'm gonna jump in on the same thing, because I have, I think, 4 board members in the room tonight, and they don't know this yet, but I've already figured out phase 3 and 4 of Mill Street Market. So part of the challenge we have in Berry County is access to local healthy food. And as was also touched on, a lot of people don't know how to cook from scratch, or they don't have the time, or they don't know what kohlrabi is, or what was that tonight? Tatsoi. We had to Google it at our table. And so that's part of Mill Street Market. That's our goal, is to teach that, to have tastings, to have education around what is this thing on the shelf that's grown where, and we're like down the road. I also think we will need to expand into, it's called an accelerator kitchen. It's for those people who graduate out of that incubator space, but they still need somewhere to produce what they're making in a large scale. And then we need a mid-size packing, co-manufacturing facility as well in our area. For what Josh was saying, you know, I think that those are the things that are some of the issues we face. And just like you were saying, we are in such a donut hole of all these places we can reach out to and draw people in. I think that's also a challenge for Berry County, is that we are not on a main corridor, and something we need to look at, and how do we push this food out. One thing, I just was writing a grant because I went and met with a lot of small producers, and they said, well, you're just not in our path. I don't know how we would get our product to you. So I was like, great, I'm writing a grant anyway, let me throw in a vehicle, a refrigerated cargo vehicle. And it really, the grant was for, I can't remember now, rural development and bringing the equity in. And so, you know, why can't Mill Street Market go and get the product and bring it to Berry County and bring it into a place where people can get to it? And then the next question is, how do we make it affordable? Because, you know, when you're a local producer, you're small scale, your prices don't match Walmart. However, your product far exceeds it. So again, it's the education. And so there's so many pieces we need to put together. And I think we're on the path. And so it's pretty exciting.
I want to hear from Jessica. That was on somebody else. Let's hear about that.
So, to piggyback off what you were saying, Joshua, with having the ability to process produce, grains, meat, even down the road in Berry County, I think is where we need to look to be, in the conversations that we need to have for the next 25 years. The Michigan Department of Education, Michigan Extension Office are huge proponents of push local, and it's a big, that's my heart too. But what does local mean? The Michigan 10-cent grant, local means anywhere in Michigan. So most of what I'm purchasing is not coming from Berry County. What does local mean from a broadliner like GFS? Well, it could be the 4 states around us. Well, is that really local? How do we get to a point where we can be hyper-local in our communities? Our families, our students, our staff, look at, we had parsnips, we had a root vegetable hash, you know, we talked about on the, I did that at school one year. And we have little grower profiles that we put in all of our kitchens. And we had a teacher come in, she said, oh my gosh, that's my family's farm. I had no idea. If you promote, if you do the work, people get excited about it. Not just staff, not students, not families. It helps the local economy. It helps the nutrition of our students. We all know that something that traveled 5 miles and was grown here is going to have much better flavor than came from California and has been sitting in a warehouse for 2 months. So yeah, I would be extremely excited about the possibility of having some sort of co-op or,
Co-manufacturing.
yes, absolutely.
Jessica, I'd like you to extend a little bit more, being in a large institution, feeding. What role do you see schools as helping move things forward into this future food community that's more hyper-local?
So I think along the lines of the huge push from our state right now, which is amazing, the amount of grant opportunities, but the administration and food service directors in general in our buildings need to be passionate about it. I've been a vegetarian since I was 13, so I'm not gonna age myself, but lots of decades now. And so my passion is fruits and vegetables anyway, and growing up on a farm, just knowing, like, there's nothing like going out to your own garden and grabbing a tomato. There's no grocery store that you can have that flavor. To tie in with schools, on the nutrition and education side of it, when you bring those students in, they have a buy-in, they're more willing to try. With our hydroponics program, you saw the pictures of the 2 large units that we have that we use to feed our students, but in addition to that, we have 4 mobile units that can be checked out to classrooms. One is in the high school science, AP science class right now, and they're growing some things. We've got one going on to an elementary building. The more that you get our younger generations involved, the better it's going to be for this initiative as a whole.
Is there still an FFA? Is that still something?
There is. I think there wasn't. We just had this conversation. I'm not a part of the FFA. There was, and then there wasn't, or it was kind of dormant, and now it's back.
I just remember growing up, and that was the guys with all the blue coats. All the big farmers in the area and all their kids wore the coats.
You know, I was gonna lean into that some. As part of that Mill Street Market in our Child Development Center, we're looking to put in microgreen growers because it's a 10-day process. And when you're talking about 2 to 4, 5-year-olds, they're not gonna make a tomato growing season full of excitement. So, you know, they will get excited again, but, you know, our goal is to let them plant, and 10 days later, they're eating microgreens. And to have that push, you know, around the kitchen and in our building. We've been meeting with a microgreen grower who teaches and has salad parties, and she said she can't bring enough because the kids grow a lot of the product, and they just won't stop eating it. And so many people think kids won't eat vegetables, and it's just not true. It's just how they're introduced. And so I think that's a huge
And
part.
exposure, over
Correct.
and over and over.
Yeah. So I think, you know, that's another part of where we have to restart as a community, is with these young children.
So Nick, Josh, I'd like to hear a little bit more from the growing, farming side of things. You know, what are some of the challenges that you see day to day outside of the pandemic right now, and getting your product to the local community and feeding the local community? What are the challenges, and maybe what are one or two things that can help you get your product better served out?
Okay. Well, I'll start out by saying I'm really excited about the Mill Street Market. One of the biggest challenges that I've had this year is getting my produce into people's hands. Starting out, you don't have all the connections, you don't know who's buying local, who isn't. I can grow a lot more than what I'm able to sell at this point, and I think that that's very discouraging for new producers that come into the field to have that issue in front of them. So the first thing I would say is we need some way of getting, for lack of a better word, more specialization. Farmers are good at growing food. We're not really that great at going out and peopling and marketing our product, nor do we have the time, if we're spending all of our time growing the product, to then go do 2-3 days a week at farmers markets. So it all becomes a trade-off of what do we want to focus on. So I think anything that we can do to encourage more specialization and not have a farmer be master of 5 different trades at one time would really help encourage people going into the field. Also, Pricing is another huge issue in farming, and a lot of that to me comes from the seasonality of what we grow, especially here in the north. We only have half a year to do all of our growing. Everyone grows the same thing, it all comes ripe at the same time, and now we're all competing with each other to see who can sell it the cheapest, and we all go broke. So part of what I see as a solution to that would be more season extension. Part of the reason why I'm building a heated greenhouse is to leverage those off-season times when you can grow food that nobody else is growing. But even without heated greenhouses, just simple high tonals, we can extend our season both in the spring and the fall considerably. So I think some of those solutions go a long way to helping new producers get into the field and be more successful at it.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Joshua. With that as well is that producing is hard manual work. Whether it's in a greenhouse, whether it's tending to your garden, it's going to take a toil from you. And I watch not only are the employees at the farm, but I watch my brother and I watch my dad. It's a labor of blood, sweat, and tears to get those turkeys to our store. It, again, like the pandemic, it came to a crossroads for us to build a store. How are we going to get our turkey to market? We were just talking earlier that we used to produce for Bill Maher, and Bill Maher was then bought out, and basically growers in West Michigan were given an ultimatum: find something else or get out of farming because we're no longer taking your turkey. So that gave a response from all these different farms. What are we going to do? And so my dad building a store saying, I'm now going to get into the retail side. I need a place for this meat to go, and I need to make a way for us to have a living. That's how we're going to do that. And that was not an easy task. And like Josh was saying, like, how do you get things to consumers? We had to make our own way to do that. And so having staff, being able to pay for that staff, and then the inputs for everything that you have to go to sustain those birds, raise those birds, and then to get those to market. It's a huge labor of love.
Have I seen the Otto brand with Borset's cheese? Borset?
I don't believe so. That would also probably be a good question for me on what exactly affiliates. So I have
it's like a deli vendor for a grocery store.
If you go to Harding's in Richland, it's typically side by side with the horsehead cheese. You'll see Otto's.
I just thought I saw it, and I wondered how many restaurants we have in the area that have the farm to table kind of thing for your stuff too. If they could feature a menu item with your name on it, I mean that's what we want. That's brand recognition. That's pride of ownership, and I don't know. I would just like to see more of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You
what,
go to the restaurant, you see a dish that's made with your stuff, and it's like, well, you can get that at Mill Street too. And wow.
so that's part of Mill Street. We will have a cafe as well that will be utilizing the products and we'll be buying those out.
Do we have any farm to table?
I don't think,
Seasonal Grill, I believe, likes to advertise. that
Yeah,
it's
well, that's the greatest advertisement in the world.
Yeah, if anyone's familiar with the Kalamazoo food scene, there used to be a place called Food Dance, which was amazing for that. And they would highlight the producers on their menus and really focused in on that, but unfortunately they are no longer there. But more places like that, but even if we got a bunch of restaurants to do that, that still wouldn't be enough to support the size of the industry that we need to be developing. In my opinion on that. Another thing that came to mind while he was speaking was something else that we could look at as a way to make farmers more successful is kind of what they do with places in France, where you have the regional specialty items that can only be grown in one little area. And it prevents your product from becoming commoditized, which is when you lose all your money, is when you're growing and selling a commodity. Otto's turkey, they're not selling into the commodity turkey market, they're selling their own. Mouville, same thing. They're not sending it to the milk, bulk warehouse, they're
Man,
developing
good
their
ice
own
cream
product.
too.
Yeah, exactly. So anything that we can do to create those specialty niche markets, with brand recognition and maybe even regional recognition is what I would love to see. I would like to see Berry County have recognition like the Champagne region of France does.
Yeah.
Things along those lines, so.
I think that's a great.
That's a beautiful hope. And with that, I would love to hear, as we wrap this up and open up to the audience, any questions you might have. I'd love to hear from each of you what one hope is that you have in building this local food community that we're talking about. Please share.
Well, my hope is that Mill Street Market turns into the hub for our local growers and producers, and an outlet for them to sell and become more successful. And in return, that we have healthier food at our fingertips, and you're not having to remember to go to the farmer's market on Saturday. And I do want to point out, we are not getting rid of the farmer's market. We are actually going to work together as a group to keep the farmer's market going, but also have their product. So we've gotten that question a lot. So it's
I think that my one hope would be that we can make this discussion a reality. That we could get hyper-local foods into our schools, not just Michigan-grown food, not just food grown 3 hours away, that we can get it done in Berry County. I was at a conference last week where one of the sessions, Michigan Department of Education gave, and the Michigan Extension Network was there too. And when I was in Coopersville, I first started buying from Gavin Orchards, the first farm. It was when we were all kind of just first getting into farm to school. And it took me 2-3 months jumping through hoops. They wanted gap insurance from the farm. The farmer didn't have gap insurance. Back and forth, back and forth. I had then worked for a management company, not actually the district, so that was part of it as well. But in this conversation that I had last week, a lot of directors and probably producers and farmers don't realize that you don't have to have a specific insurance. You don't have to have gap insurance. There is nothing that the health department requires for you to make micro purchases, for you to purchase 2 streets down from any given school building. So I think getting the word out, how do we do this? Well, what's required of us? Not as much as we thought, so.
I've already talked a lot about what my hopes are for Berry County. I would say the one thing that I haven't touched much on, and this is kind of a biggie, is I'd like to see us do all of this in an environmentally regenerative, sustainable way. I don't want us to just produce a whole bunch of conventional farms that produce local, which is still better than conventional farms that are being imported from a long ways away. But ideally, we do this so that we're actually improving the soil here in Berry County and cleaning up the rivers and the lakes and maintaining our ecosystems or even improving them through our agriculture. That is my dream for Berry County.
A cabin was built on my family's property 160 years ago. My hope is that day one starts very soon for the next 160th anniversary of somebody else's farm. That we continue to brood up, as you were talking, Josh, that we're creating a sustainable environment. That not only can we plant things, but we can produce things and we can feed people. That Joshua can become so successful that he can pass this down to the next generation. And that our kids at TK or at Delton or at Hastings can see a glimpse of how close they are with their food and begin their own journey to maybe get into that agricultural field. And that this is the seed that is starting, that we have all these like-minded individuals, we have this motivation to make something happen. Let that be the seed, let that be the fertilizer that starts the next set of sesquicentennial farms here in Berry County.
The floor is open if anybody has questions.
So do we have a commonality here for everybody with organic production or not?
certified.
Let's talk about it.
So I asked that. So organic certification is a somewhat expensive endeavor. I am not organic certified, and I don't plan on in the near future.
But do you grow organic?
Yes.
Okay,
So
that's the point.
yes.
What you're selling is organic food, clean food, and I believe from my knowledge of the Otto family, you are as well, correct?
We do our best, yes.
Yeah, because I go back to Linda Pregetzer and the Western Michigan University Food Co-op, and when they sold the food co-op building out from under her, she couldn't get rid of the Otto turkeys, because she bought from you guys, and her customers were there in October. You're gonna have the turkeys, aren't ya? And she said, yeah, we'll do the turkeys. So she kept doing the turkeys every single year until she started Just Good Food downtown Kalamazoo.
Wow.
And I worked with her at Bronson Hospital, so it's really a fun story.
Yeah.
But yeah, the organic side of it, I think, is really, really important, and educating about the importance of clean food.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing.
Good.
I love the camaraderie and the focus that everyone seems to have together from your own unique perspectives. I'm wondering if maybe, whether it's through Pierce, having brought everybody together and given us all these individual vignettes, maybe there is or some other resource that we can get on social media, which is where everybody is, of what's going on today at whatever, what's going to be available, how are we all coming together that all of these goods are going to be at some location or at some time available for the public, and we can just click on YouTube and find that out, or somebody can have this for this group, and whoever comes into it, because that's the way we all get information. We don't have a robust network of newspapers anymore that we get in our hand. This is our resources for information, and somehow, because Pierce has brought this together, maybe there's some method that some sort of communication can be going out so that we all know how this is going to formulate together, because I think there's a real goal here that's going to be met.
I want to add to that just a little bit. I love your idea, and I really think we need to champion Virginia, because she mentioned Pierce bringing this together and the undertaking to not only find people willing to be up here on this panel, but at the same time to find people that are very interested and motivated. I think we need a huge round of applause for Virginia. I made it twice. 24 different producers on tonight that through the 2 nights, we had 24 producers coming out of Berry County and in the surrounding areas. Such an awesome thing. And so, to hear more about that is something that I think maybe needs to put together. Maybe it's a newsletter, maybe it's something on Facebook, maybe Pierce features it. I'm not sure how it is, but I did want to pose that to Virginia to say, this is an amazing thing. I hope 26 has a couple more of these,
He doesn't want to have
very
another
fun.
one.
But anyway, I wanted to mention.
So Mill Street does have a Facebook
Okay.
and a website, but I'm going to plug B.Healthy Berry County and put this on them.
I think the vision is that through Mill Street Market, that's where people look for that information.
Right.
So it's going to be a clearinghouse. It's not just going to be the stuff we sell, but it's going to be connecting
Correct.
people to farm stands, to farms, to autos. It's not, we're there as a mission-based organization, not to make a huge profit. We're a nonprofit organization. We want to create the robust food system and access that you all are talking about. And you'll get that through Mill Street Market, through B.Healthy Berry County, Pierce Cedar Creek. There's going to be that conduit of information that'll flow through all of us.
Yeah, we can all join the group and like and share, and that's all a big deal.
I think also to go forward from this night, and I don't know if all of you are privy to this or not, but I think we could have a deeper conversation into how does this go forward? Nick, what do you need? What do you have? Joshua, what do you need? What do you have? How can we make this happen? What do you need? What do you have? And then somehow that gets shared to the social media realm of what it is also.
And I'll wrap this up so we can go out and enjoy conversation in the comments. But I just want to thank every one of our panelists tonight. What an amazing panel. And as far as Pierce Cedar Creek's role, I like to think about the original vision that Bill Pierce had. Next year it'll be 25 years that Pierce Cedar Creek Institute has been here. It opened in 2001. And part of Bill Pierce's original vision was to preserve the wetlands, the forests, the prairies, and our agricultural heritage. And so I feel, 3 of those things we've done to some level. I think the agricultural piece is the next horizon to bring into this full vision to fulfill that goal. And so I just thank every one of you. I thank every one of you on the panel, Catherine, Julie, the staff, volunteers, and this community for bringing resources and energy around this together, because this is what lifts these initiatives off. So thank you all tonight for being here. I hope there's more feasts to come. So thank you very much.